PJ, good day, PJ. Ruvan, thanks for joining me on the F-word discussions where we talk about finance. But what an exciting week we've got. We are in the final. I'm not sure how we got there. The Springboks got into the final, but it was such an exciting weekend with the Proteas, first of all, thrashing England, and then we just barely passed by. But we are looking forward to this weekend and hope the Springboks can go all the way. PJ, talking about the Springboks being offshore, you have an interesting graphic that you want to share with us about millionaires immigrating or moving.
No.
Yeah, is it just a South African thing, or maybe elaborate on what you where's the millionaires going?
Yeah, so we had a client that he went to hike the Camino. If you don't know the Camino, it's in Spain. There's a long journey that a lot of people take, and a lot of the time people take it on their own. It's like finding yourself. If you don't want to go eat, pray, love, you go and hike the Camino and stuff like that. I know there's in Cape Town or something also like a Camino. It's to find yourself. And he went there, and to half of the people he could talk English to because it's other nationalities, Spanish, a lot of people that don't understand English. So he could talk to half of them. And when he talked to them, he realized all of them have the same issues. If they are from Australia, USA, or something, most of their children, like 50% of the people that he could talk to, his children didn't live in the country anymore where they live. So it's not just we always say, okay, everyone's going offshore, everyone is leaving, but it's actually a global phenomenon because the world is so small. A lot of people go offshore. Even in the US, you can stay on the East Coast and then your children move to the West Coast. That's like a 5-hour flight in any case. So it's not just a South African thing that I want to show. But the stats is people leaving South Africa? Yes. And I'm just going to share a graphic with you. My screen.
Yeah, PJ, and just on that point, they say there's more Italians living outside of Italy than in Italy because they are so close to the other European countries. So I think that's just an example of exactly what you just said. Okay.
Yeah, and here you can see South Africa. This is in 2023. Millionaires and high net worth individuals is someone with a wealth of over 1 million US dollars. So not rand, US dollars. Leaving, and they said in South Africa it's 500. So it's a big. Still, we can see we are a net. People are immigrating. Millionaires are immigrating from South Africa. Interesting, but there's also other countries in a lot of emerging markets. Brazil, Mexico, Brazil with 1,200, Mexico with 700, and then India with 6,500, and China with 30,500. And China's like, everyone sees this is the new upcoming economy. You can see a lot of them leaving. Interesting enough, okay, Russia you might understand. And from Brexit, the UK is like the only developed market that also lost a lot of millionaires, and they say it's because of Brexit. And so who was the guys in net gain? Australia, interesting enough, most of them, 5,200, but I think there's a lot of the Chinese people that's going to Australia and New Zealand plus 700. So we understand this because a lot of our clients, they go to US or Canada or Australia and United Arab Emirates, interesting enough, 4,500. So that's a big net importer of millionaires. Again, if you take the size of economies, India's got a 10 times bigger economy than ours, but they exported more than 10 times more millionaires. Interesting, the ones that New Zealand is the same economy as ours, and again, the United Arab Emirates, but I think they will take us over quite easily in the next few decades. So just to say, it's not only South Africa that's got this problem, it's all around the world, and you don't want that because that's where the brain drain, a lot of the money goes out. You want people to want to come to your country. So just interesting to note.
Yeah. Thank you, PJ. It's very interesting. Hopefully some of those people going to Australia can play rugby as well to assist them for the next World Cup. But PJ, then it's also interesting to see that maybe perhaps because you do have the money as a millionaire, you also just have the freedom to live somewhere else. It's not necessarily that you're negative about your country, but now you can actually choose you want to live in Italy or in Spain, or because you have the money, you have the means to do that. And it's so easy to become a global citizen now that, why not? If you have the money, just go and stay maybe for a couple of years. I think we also always have a negative connotation about people leaving, and I don't necessarily think it's always like that, people fleeing the country, because I think there's no hope for South Africa. But there was interesting numbers that you showed there. Ruvan, over to you. You mentioned that you have something about contributions that we're allowed to do or not allowed to do. Please elaborate.
Thank you, Geo. Yes, I'm just going to share my screen. Just confirm if you can see my
There we go.
presentation. Perfect. Yeah, so I'm quickly just going into a quite simple example and calculations of disallowed contributions and what you can use them for and the power that they have on paying less tax when you retire. So what is a disallowed contribution? So a disallowed contribution is retirement contributions which did not previously qualify for deduction. Okay, so the 350,000 or the 27.5% of your remuneration or your taxable income. So that's according to Section 11F of the Income Tax Act. You're allowed to do those contributions to get a deduction in your tax returns. So the disallowed contributions is the contributions that you make towards retirement that's above those limits. So here's a quick example. So John is 60 years old. He's got a pension fund of 5 million rand. So he's going to retire from this pension fund. So he opts to take 1/3 in cash. So that 1/3 is 1,666,666 million. So you'll see without the disallowed contribution, the tax on that lump sum would be around 327,000 rand. So obviously this takes into account that there has been no other cash withdrawals taken from his pension, of course. So if he did not make any disallowed contributions, that would be the tax payable on that 1/3. Now the 2/3 that's left, the 3,333,000, goes to purchase a living annuity. So just for the example's sake, we say that for this living annuity, he elects a income of 15,000 rand a month. So 15,000 rand a month is around 180,000 rand. So let's look at what happens now if he has a disallowed contribution. So once again, for this example, his disallowed contribution is 1.8 million. So he contributed 1.8 million rand above the limits that you do have for the taxable deductions. Okay, so that 1.6 million, 1.66 million, that is his 1/3 of the pension fund, gets a deduction now of 1.8 million, which is that disallowed contribution. Now, that would obviously mean that there's 133,000 rand in excess of that disallowed contribution. So what that means is if you look at that 1/3 in cash that he takes, that lump sum, there will be no tax payable on that lump sum. Okay, so because of that disallowed contribution. So that also still means that there's still 133,000 rand that's not been used of that disallowed contribution. So what do we do now? So that disallowed contribution that's still left can now be used as an exemption in terms of Section 10C. Okay, and that will be used against the compulsory annuity. That would be that living annuity that he purchased. So that 15,000 rand a month, that is the 180,000 rand for the year. So if you take that annual income of 180,000 and you less that Section 10C exemption of 133,000 that's left from that disallowed contribution taken off the lump sum, you will see that the taxable income would then only be 46,666 for the year. Now that amount is obviously quite a bit less than his taxable income that he would have had, but that now also brings him under the threshold of 95,750 for persons under the age of 65. So effectively, he would also, for the year after his retirement, that income from the living annuity after his retirement would also not be taxed. Okay, so you'll see that disallowed contribution is quite a good tool for tax planning at retirement and post-retirement, and with this I would say basic example, you'll see the power of that. And just before I end, remember once again, this is only to show you what it can be. This is not any advice. I'm not giving any advice on this. This is just me showing you the power of
advisors can use now
in terms of your tax
more
planning
regularly
for retirement.
because the tax laws did change in the last few years. And another big advantage that people don't realize is the growth on your investments in a retirement vehicle, in a retirement annuity or living annuity. There's no tax on the growth. So there's no capital gains, there's no dividend tax, there's no income tax. So that's why people do that. They put money into for the disallowed contributions, because now that 5 million can grow to 6 million, and you don't pay extra tax on growth. You only pay in, income tax when you take it out. So that's a very big advantage. And retirement planning is becoming a lot more tax planning, and it's almost about investment planning. So that's a lot of people can do their own investments, but when it comes to retirement, I think it's definitely sort out professional and expert advice, because it can get quite difficult. Because, like I said, this was an easy example, but if you don't do it every day, it's quite difficult. But everyone is very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Look, if you look at that example, you'll see that those amounts are already, sort of the final amounts. But there are many moving parts when you look at gross income. There are many moving parts when you look at that Section 11F calculations. So it does get quite difficult if you put the whole picture together. So I think it's really important to seek help, and especially I think when you get to that stage, you'll see the power of this type of retirement and
Thank you.
specifically tax
Yeah,
planning.
thank you, Ruvan. It's vitally important, and we recommend at least 5 years prior to retirement to start with that planning process. Because now, like you mentioned, you have this disallowed contributions. Normally, people thought you can only have 350,000 rand per year. That's the cap. But no, you can actually add more. You just not got, you won't get the tax benefit immediately, but like you just indicated, you will get it later on. So tax planning vitally important. Start 5 years prior and definitely get expert advice. It's a very important place where you can either save a lot of tax or make the wrong decisions and deplete a lot of money going forward. For me, I just want to end off with a chapter or with a quote. It's not like an insurance quote, it's a quote that someone said, and it's from a book called The Psychology of Money from Morgan Housel. I'm not sure if you guys have read it, but it's quite an interesting book. It's all about human behavior and how we look at finances. And he mentioned in chapter 13, which is about making room for error, that the most important part of every plan is planning on your plan not going according to plan. And it's quite an interesting way. And he used the analogy of the casino tables, blackjack. And you have those certain clever people who can actually read cards. So what they do is they don't know what's going to come next, but they can see what's already on the table, and then they can calculate the odds of what will come next. But there's no certain guarantee that they know what will come next, but they can stack the odds a little bit more in their favor. And that is exactly what he said we can do in investments. We just have to kind of allow for the room for error, because we don't know what the future is going to hold. But we can flip the odds a little bit in our favor. But people, PJ, Ruvan, people want certainty, or especially as a financial advisor, they don't want you to tell them, listen, I don't know, let's just see where the market goes. Or use the example of a pundit in rugby. Let's say this weekend, Springboks are going to play against New Zealand. You don't want some pundit on the TV saying, you guys, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see when the game starts. Let's see if Springboks can win, New Zealand can win. No, people actually want certainty. Like, I think the Springboks are going to, and the more outspoken pundits are, the more followers they actually have. And even the more controversial they are, the more followers they have, because people want to back someone that's kind of certain about what they know what's going to happen. But we don't know what's going to happen in investments. We have to allow for the room for error, but we can stack the odds in our favor. And there's many ways to do that, but just I want to give you 3 examples of how you can stack the odds in your favor to be a successful investor over the long term. And the first one is diversify. PJ, in a previous episode, we touched about diversifying by spreading your risk, choosing different investments, different shares, different stock options that you're going to investment. You immediately take a lot of risk off the table rather than putting your money on one gut feel that you have. Then you have a lot of risk in your investments. Also, the more time you give it, the lot better your chances gets to being a successful investor. So if you wait for it, you plan over a long time, you then cancel out all the short-term volatility, and you stack the odds completely into your corner to be a successful investor, because you give the market time to recover. And then lastly, is to invest consistently. If you can, on a monthly basis or at least on an annual basis, get into the market at certain points, you stack the odds in your favor. Because even if the markets go up and down, you buy into the market at certain different times, and that just once again stack the odds in your favor. So we don't know what's going to happen going forward.
Thank you,
but
Joe.
we know how we can stack the odds in our favor.
I definitely agree with you. Most of us, like you said, that's the psychology of money. When we want to invest in something that did very well the last year.
Me, guys.
Like, let's example, Bitcoin. You want to invest in something that did very well. But actually, if you want to stack the odds in your favor, you would look at things that did not do very well and invest in those. Because it's counterintuitive, but because of the valuation, it is cheaper. It's actually better to buy it. Your entry point's better. Is it always the case, or is this advice? No, definitely not, because it can happen. But again, the odds is in your favor. So if you go and buy something that ran quite hard the last year, the probability of doing it again this year going forward is not that big. But yeah, so thanks.
Rule number 1 of investing. Yeah, rule number 1, buy low, sell high. And that's completely, like you say, the reverse of what our psychologists say. We want to buy the winners who's already high. No, that's the time you sell. And like I said, that will just completely stack the odds in your favor. And that's where a outside person can also assist, because he's not emotionally involved. We are emotionally involved with our money. We want to back the winners because our friends around the fire says, you need to buy that. And then we get group peer pressure gets the better of us, and we buy that stock that's completely overpriced.
Thanks.
Gents, enjoy the rugby. Yeah, hopefully next week we can talk about some. We have some more positive news in terms of the rugby. But all the best and enjoy the week.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully we have another 1 pointer. My heart. My health would probably not keep up.
All right, guys, enjoy.
Cool, cheers.
Wacht net, because he said something went wrong. No, he said something went wrong. Het jy Wacht net gou. Okay, nou